Hello everyone. So roughly 6 months ago, I watched a video that showed up in my recommended. It was called "This is Why Drew Brees is Actually the GOAT." It was created by a much more successful YouTuber than me called Beardmohbox. Even though I disagree with his opinion during the video, it was still very well made. This guy usually does Madden videos or he discusses a little bit about the NFL, and I suggest that you guys take a look at it for yourself. The reason why I'm making this video is because I'm not a big Drew Brees guy. Is he great? Yes. Is he a Hall of Famer? Of course. But I hold him less highly than most people. Before I start diving into his video, can you guys please not harass this guy after you're done watching it? Just don't go start dissing this guy because he has a different opinion than you and say that you fucked his mom last night. I want to have faith in humanity. Anyway, let's get to it.
There is one simple reason I wanted to make this video. Drew Brees is underrated.
Wow, we're already at disagreement. If you didn't know, I made a video 18 months ago on how Drew Brees is overrated. No, that does not mean he sucks. It means too highly assessed or evaluated. When it came to my Drew Brees video, one of my arguments was that the fact that he was a tier 3 Hall of Fame quarterback, which is the lowest tier in my book. So Drew Brees is tier 3, Peyton Manning would be tier 2, Joe Montana would be tier 1. That was one of the arguments for my video. You'll see the others later on in this video. Plus, I can't see people being well liked being viewed as underappreciated, because charismatic people similar to Drew Brees usually get attention. According to Forbes in 2012, Drew Brees was ranked higher than Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning for most liked NFL players. If he is liked, then he's probably not underappreciated, especially when he beat Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning, who are the kings of commercials.
7 years, never a scratch.
That's more than a scratch.
What do you think about a new truck, buddy?
Now, I don't mean, not enough people think he's truly elite underrated. I mean, this man could very well be called the greatest of all time at the position, and I'm going to show you why.
Split Bennett, needing 7 yards. Brees throws, end zone. Touchdown, and there's the record.
If all we judged quarterbacks on is yards, like we do so often with running backs and receivers, then there wouldn't even be a competition here.
Running backs and wide receivers are viewed as the least important component to an offense, partially because they are about gaining yards. So basing yards as the main component to Drew Brees' success is a little bit asinine, since yards don't seem to be super important, just a fraction of the equation. If you look at some of the greatest receiving plays ever, they are not caught by elite receivers. Hell, when it comes to some of the greatest rushing plays of all time, some of them are not even performed by running backs. Sorry, competitive fantasy football players.
Nobody racks up yards like Brees, period. Explaining just how good he is this simple. Highest career regular season passing yards per game with 283.36. Most games all time with 300 plus yards at 109. Most games all time with 400 plus yards at 15.
Fastest to reach 40, 50, and 60,000 passing yards. Most seasons leading the league in passing yards with 7. Most consecutive seasons with 4,000 plus yards at 11 and 5,000 plus yards at 3. And most seasons with 5,000 plus passing yards with
5. And here's the killer. There's only been 9 total and no other player has more than 1.
Down and 8 from the Giants, 9. Brees fires. Brees ties an NFL record with his 7th touchdown.
Who cares if you can move the ball if you can't put it in the end zone? Well, Brees is covered there too, having thrown more than 30 touchdowns in 9 seasons, which brings him even with Peyton Manning and Brett Favre, and Brees still has time. Now let's check back in with the NFL records for a reminder on how Drew Brees has outperformed every quarterback ever when it comes to throwing touchdowns.
First off, he's tied for the all-time record most touchdowns thrown in a single game with 7. He also has the most consecutive games with at least 1 touchdown with 54, which beat Johnny Unitas' 52-year-old record by 7 games. He has the most consecutive home games with at least 1 touchdown at 60, the most consecutive seasons with 20-plus touchdowns tied with Manning at 13, the most consecutive seasons with 30-plus touchdowns at 9, and he was also the first quarterback in NFL history to pass for over 40-plus touchdowns in consecutive seasons.
The thing with these records is the word consecutive. He's not setting records off the back of one good season. He's doing it by consistently outperforming everybody around him.
Records are not hard to come by in the modern era, especially with passing offenses. Some of the records he did say, similar to the John Unitas one, is not that impressive because if your team doesn't throw at least one touchdown pass per game, your team probably sucks. Also, the consecutive records that he listed off aren't really that impressive, especially when Drew Brees plays in a pass-heavy offense. And since his offense is so pass-heavy, running backs actually suffer under this system. Once Chris Ivory left New Orleans to go to New York, his numbers jumped up drastically. When it comes to Reggie Bush might have been better off being drafted by the Houston Texans for his own personal sake. Once he became a Miami Dolphin, Reggie Bush was a 1,000-yard rusher, and then he became a 1,000-yard rusher again with the Detroit Lions. Even if he stayed healthy with the New Orleans State, he still wouldn't have been a 1,000-yard rusher based off the amount of attempts he would have gotten. Plus, if he was drafted by the Houston Texans instead, his personal accolades would have been a lot better. Sure, he might have not have won a Super Bowl, however, though, he might have had a much better legacy. Once Drew Brees left San Diego, LaDainian Tomlinson had one of the greatest seasons ever by a running back. Sure, scat backs do well with Drew Brees, but actual running backs that actually run the football do not. Other great quarterbacks do not have this problem. Some of Tom Brady's best seasons, his running backs still rushed for 1,000 yards. Sean Marino had the best season of his career when Peyton Manning threw for 55 touchdown passes. When Brett Favre took steroids, had that stellar season in 2009, Adrian Peterson still ran for 18 rushing touchdowns, which was a career high for him. You can blame Sean Payton's system, however, though Sean Payton's system really helps out Drew Brees' passing numbers. Not only that, how many of his stats are in garbage time? On the NFL's YouTube page, they had the Drew Brees video on when he passed for 500 yards against the Arizona Cardinals back in 2006. Sure, he passed for a ton of yards that game. However, though, the team still lost and the majority of those yards were in garbage time. The next part of his video, he's going to talk about Drew Brees' accuracy.
To give you an idea of just how accurate Drew was, amazingly, 4 of his 20-yard darts hit in the dead center of the bullseye.
Raw numbers can be circumstantial. Pure yards and touchdowns don't tell the whole story of how well Brees plays the position. And that's where accuracy comes in. Accuracy is a great measure of just how good a quarterback is because it's a built-in success to failure measure, and Brees is great. As a matter of fact, Drew Brees is the most accurate quarterback of all time. He's the all-time leader in completion percentage with 66.8%, and that's a number that's only been climbing season by season, and in a few weeks will be different again.
He's accurate, but he isn't the most accurate of all time. Sure, the numbers might disagree with me, but hear me out on this one. It's not hard to be accurate when you're throwing to such huge targets all the time and checking down to running backs. Not only that, he also plays in a dome. Dome quarterbacks essentially have higher passer rating, so essentially that makes them much more efficient. And when has Drew Brees played in a cold weather game or at least a severe weather game? Let me know down below. He finishes off with the topic with the fact that Sam Bradford actually has the highest completion percentage ever, but to be honest, I agree with him that Drew Brees still kind of holds the record because Drew Brees threw it more during the season he broke it, and not only that, he also threw 26 more touchdowns than Sam Bradford when Sam Bradford broke it in 2016. Then he proceeds to talk about Drew Brees' supporting cast around him.
And Brees with an end zone shot and a beautiful catch for the touchdown by Jordy Nelson.
Drew Brees has never played with a single Pro Bowl wide receiver in New Orleans. No receiver that Brees has played with during his time with the Saints has been awarded a Pro Bowl nod before, during, or after joining the team.
He's not wrong. However, though, Marquise Colston and Brandon Cooks are Pro Bowl caliber wide receivers. John Gruden probably has a huge boner right now just because I said that.
I had 7 rounds to make a move, then get it done.
And although he has played with a couple of Pro Bowl tight ends.
A couple? Referring to Antonio Gates as a Pro Bowl tight end is not wrong. It's just an understatement. Plus, you can say the same thing with Jimmy Graham.
Now, I did some maths for all 5 of Brees' 5,000-yard passing seasons. In 2008, he completed passes to 17 different players, 2 of which were Pro Bowlers, 1 running back, 1 tight end. 2011, 13 players, 3 Pro Bowlers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. 2012, 15 players, 4 Pro Bowlers, 3 running backs, 1 tight end. 2013, 13 players, 3 Pro Bowlers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. And then 2016, 14 players, 2 Pro Bowlers, 2 running backs, and one of those was fullback John Kuhn. In 5 seasons of passing for over 5,000 yards, and that's a combined 26,092 yards, 2,220 completions, and 199 touchdowns, not one single pass made it into the hands of a Pro Bowl receiver because there was never a single one on any of those teams.
The Pro Bowl isn't exactly the best way to evaluate players because simply it's more of a popularity contest than it is about quality. Good football players are usually the popular football players. However, though, there's a reason why Sunday Night Football no longer uses Pro Bowl as a way to signify players. They all give them the Pro Football Focus rating for a reason. Plus, this guy's forgot about Drew Brees' great offensive line, whether it's Jamal Brown, Jari Evans, Jonathan Goodwin, John Stinchcomb, Carl Nicks, Jerome Bushyard, Taron Armstead, and a bunch of other guys I probably forgot to name. He then talks about how Drew Brees has played with a bunch of different guys over his career.
I mean, I was heartbroken. We had 5 great years together, and I think just the unexpectedness of it.
It's bad enough Brees hasn't had a Pro Bowl receiver in New Orleans, but it's worse that once a receiver gets anywhere close to 1,000 receiving yards, they're shipped out of there. Now that's definitely an over-exaggeration, but 2 seasons after reaching 1,000 yards, Lance Moore was in Pittsburgh. After getting 931 yards, Kenny Stills was shipped to Miami, and Cooks had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons before being sent to the Patriots. And Jimmy Graham outstayed his welcome too after averaging just over 10 touchdowns a season for 5 years. And the point here is that the emphasis has always been on Brees. Individual receivers are irrelevant because it is Brees that makes this work.
Wow, he's like a quarterback that's been in the NFL for a long time. Tons of quarterbacks have lost their targets over the years. When it comes to Aaron Rodgers, he's lost Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, Donald Driver. Same thing with Brady when it came to Troy Brown, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman. Same thing with Ben Roethlisberger when it came to Hines Ward, Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown. The list goes on and on. Essentially, quarterbacks just go through a plethora of wide receivers over their career because quarterbacks have longer careers than wide receivers do. He goes on to talk about Brees' defenses over the years.
Well, I'll start off by saying this. Do not blame that game on the defense, okay?
It's not a video essay on a quarterback if you don't make excuses based on the other side of the ball. Take a look at legendary quarterbacks like Montana, Elway, Favre, Manning, and Brady, and you will see that Brees has the worst winning percentage out of all those guys. Now, all those guys have won Super Bowls, and if you ever are going to be mentioned in the GOAT conversation, you'd better have a ring. Now, all of those guys had something Brees has never had, and that's a defense. Now, Favre won a Super Bowl with the number 1 defense in yards and scoring. Elway had the 6th and 8th best scoring defenses when he won his Super Bowls. Montana had the number 2, 1, 3, and 8th best scoring defense for all his wins. Brady has won with the 6th, 1st, 3rd, 8th, and 1st again ranked scoring defenses. And Manning won in 2015 with the 4th best scoring and number 1 in yards defense. Now, in 2006, Manning had a terrible defense which ranked 23rd in scoring and 21st in yards, just as bad as the 2009 Saints defense which ranked 20th in scoring and 25th in yards.
The 2009 Saints defense was definitely not terrible. They had Jonathan Vilma, Roman Harper,
Darren Sharper, one of the most hardest hitting safeties in the league,
Scott Fujita, and Will Smith. No, not that Will Smith. This Will Smith. Plus, they were under the tutelage of Greg Williams, who's actually a quality defensive coordinator. They were very good at creating turnovers, in which that they had 19 fumbles recovered and 26 interceptions. Sure, they are guilty of bounty scandal. However, though, if you look at the quarterbacks that they targeted, Brett Favre was insane, and Kurt Warner would always hold on to the ball too long. If you think that teams don't purposely hurt players, then I don't know which NFL you are watching.
Now, Brees and Manning are the only guys out of this legendary group to have won a Super Bowl with a defense that wasn't in the top 10 best in scoring.
I give Drew Brees credit on this one.
Of course, I would then point out that Drew Brees beat Manning in a Super Bowl in which the Colts had the number 8 scoring defense in the league, and he did it completing 82% of his passes, which is best all time over 30 completions in a Super Bowl. The point of that statement was that Brees has been cursed with truly terrible defenses, which regularly rank among the absolute worst in the NFL. Of course, that does help him when it comes to regularly passing for 5,000 yards, but it does also leave him with an unfair disadvantage compared to those other quarterbacks whom people are much happier to argue on behalf of when it comes to the GOAT discussion.
Since Beardmohbox thinks defensive ranking is important, essentially in 2013, the New Orleans Saints had the 4th ranked defense in the NFL. They went 11-5 and won one playoff game. And sure, that's good and all. However, though, you feel as if with Drew Brees that if he finally had a good defense, that essentially he would capitalize on it, but I guess he didn't in 2013. Then he wraps up his video.
I don't want to finish this by comparing players. I believe that is far too objective, but I believe Drew Brees has more than proven that he should be considered the best to ever play the quarterback position. We don't value other positions on MVP awards, which Brees hasn't got, or Super Bowl wins, which he does. Quarterbacks are held to different standards, but it shouldn't be the case when discussing who plays the position best.
He absolutely should be judged by a different standard. He plays quarterback in the NFL. Quarterback is by far the most important position. It's a quarterback-driven league. There is no sport in which one position is that important. Sure, there's other sports that it's close to us. For the most part, though, the quarterback will determine whether you're going to win a Super Bowl or not.
So sure, he's only won one Super Bowl, albeit for a historically terrible team that for years could only dream of making the playoffs during a 20-year drought between the 60s and 80s, never mind winning a Super Bowl. Drew Brees took a team fresh into a 3rd playoff drought of over 5 years after the 2005 season and won the franchise's first Super Bowl 4 years later.
He's not the only one. Russell Wilson with the Seattle Seahawks, Kurt Warner with the Rams, Tom Brady with the Patriots, just to name a few.
I tend to stay away from sweeping statements, but I will double down on the fact that I believe Drew Brees is the greatest quarterback of all time, because as most people would agree, just like nobody caught the ball better than Jerry Rice and nobody ran the ball better than Walter Payton, nobody has ever thrown the ball like Drew Brees.
That wraps it up. He only kinda talked about clutch moments. Drew Brees doesn't really choke, nor does he really do anything super clutch, but you have to be clutch to be considered the GOAT. Overall though, I do like his video. It's very nicely edited. I really like the music. The guy speaks really well. And if you want to watch the entire video, I'll have the link down below. I only cut out like a couple parts that were roughly 30 seconds long or not even. And there was a part where I did fast forward for the records and stuff like that. So if you just want to go through that and just watch that again, by all means, you can do that. Once again, please do not harass this guy. This guy doesn't deserve it just because he has a different opinion. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching the video. See you guys next time. Peace.